Back to the Power 2 here on College Football Addiction. Tom and I were just talking about conference champions. Let's get this thing rolling here with the right thing. College football playoff, just 2 days away. We get a Friday night game and then at least one good game on Saturday. We'll see what the other two look like. But TJ Pittinger, Hannifan Cole Thompson, we're going to talk a little bit about the portal today, talk a little bit about the CFP, talk a little bit about bowl games, talk about Michigan. So all the things. Boys, let's jump into it. The portal is out of control right now and doesn't open for 2 weeks. So not that that surprises anyone, but that's always fun.
I'm excited about it. It's so exciting that we have MAYHEM spelled MAYHEM, and that's how wild the portal is right now. No disrespect to you, TJ. I just had to say.
Can't even type on my own thing.
Here's the interesting thing for me. Remember last year when the transfer portal opened up in the winter and in the spring? The consensus was there's just not a lot of talent this year because everybody got smart to roster retention. And that's still the case, but it feels like we're kind of back to what the portal was a few years ago. There's a lot of talent hopping in the transfer portal, and most notably in the most headline worthy, it's a lot of quarterbacks. It's a lot of high profile quarterbacks, whether they have big time star ratings from once upon a time or the place they were, the guy at the helm, that sort of thing. I think there's going to be a lot of movement here. And the challenging thing, I think, overall with this is the caliber of quarterback play continues to be an issue. It continues to be a challenge for major college football. And as we've talked about within the playoff itself, and we talked about it earlier on this week, is that it's like, yeah, Fernando Mendoza is probably the best quarterback in the playoff right now, but he's not leaps and bounds, head and shoulders beyond anybody. So there's just this very thick herd of guys that are hopping in the portal this cycle that are going to find homes, are going to get paid. I mean, shoot, Mestamaker from North Texas allegedly has $3.5 million on the table from Indiana, but they can't come to a conclusion. Allegedly, he's going to look into Oklahoma State. So it's a fascinating time, and I personally enjoy the change and the headlines and the storylines to talk about within the transfer portal. But it's interesting how just in 1 year, we went from retention being the name of the game to now it's the big money guys going and get exactly that.
I'll tell you the thing that I'm really excited to see, which are going to be the teams that start to spend money in the portal to better their roster and put themselves in the college football playoff conversation this time next year. Because remind yourself, guys, last season teams like Texas and Ohio State and Penn State, they really weren't able to go big in the portal because of all of their attention was focused in on playing in the college football playoffs. So they missed out on a lot of names that probably would have been good fits for their schools. So these teams that are sitting at home or are going to bowl games or have a lot of opt-outs and they're just kind of going through the motions, they have an early lead to gain a little bit of traction and put themselves in a position where they may be able to land a premier prospect that helps them be elevated toward the status of, now we feel like the 10-2 is not just a priority, it's an expectation. Now we feel like that our defense that had a couple of holes at the linebacker spot, we got great depth. Now we feel like that we're adding and picking and choosing who are the names that fit our team. And we're going to see them go on runs to the college football playoff. I mean, look at Texas Tech, what they were able to accomplish last season with Joey McGuire missing the college football playoff. A booster came on in. He realized he wanted to put his money where his mouth was. They basically said, every single player that we could think of, you're coming over to Lubbock. Now we're fighting for a first team. Now we're fighting as one of the favorites to win in the college football playoff. Ole Miss did the exact same thing. They went 11-1. Texas A&M swung big and gotten guys like Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, not to mention what they got in on the backside, like with players such as Des Ricks. So you really got to think that come this time next season, we could be talking about several teams that were very underwhelming this year that are right back in the forefront of hoisting up a conference title championship, getting that first round bye, and being as the forefront favorites to win the college football playoff, especially when you talk about these quarterbacks that were going to be made available.
Let's go through. You've got the list, I believe, or did Tom do the list? Let's talk a little bit about some of these guys that are actually in the portal right now. We talked just quickly about Raiola, Sorsby, Lagway the other day, so we can talk about them again. But just where you think good landing spots might be, we can go through all of them. We can go through 4 of them. I don't care. Whatever you guys want to do here.
I'll start off.
You've got the list, I think.
Yeah, I'll start off. Sam Levitt. He's a very interesting player because it feels like that the reason he's leaving is for money and to go to a better situation where he's guaranteed to be in the playoffs. So that takes out a lot of schools that automatically may be able to afford him, but Do they have the pedigree to go on a playoff run? I personally think that a lot of people are going to pinpoint him to maybe go down to Miami. I think that LSU is the perfect location for him. It's somebody with proven experience. That's a catering strength of that, a priority of what Lane Kiffin likes in his quarterbacks. They have reps underneath them. On top of that, he gets to fit into a Lane Kiffin offense where very pro style, very much we're going to let you be able to work across the middle of the field. They're going to put a major emphasis on building up the trenches of the offensive line. I think that if you were to be a betting man today, Sam Levitt ends up in Baton Rouge and he's playing in the SEC for one more year to hopefully guarantee him ending up being a first-round pick.
I like Sam Levitt. I love that to LSU. I also think he makes a lot of sense at Oregon if Dante Moore decides to go to the NFL draft, because as much as I think Fernando Mendoza is the belle of the ball right now, I think if Dante Moore elects to go, he could be the number one quarterback off the board. I like his skill set that much. He still needs to grow and develop, but he could be the guy. And it's just a matter of if he decides to go. And Levitt, it's eerily reminiscent of a Bo Nix skill set, and going to Oregon and working with Dan Lanning, I think would be positive for him. Obviously, the departure of Will Stein to Kentucky is going to be a factor for any quarterback that goes there in the future, but I'd like Levitt in that direction. Sorsby is an interesting one because what he was able to do with Cincinnati at the Big 12 level, it was solid. Like, you knew exactly what you were getting from him. I just feel like the ceiling is low and the floor is relatively high. Like, he is what he is. I don't think there's going to be a ton of maturation. So it just depends on what you want to get out of him or what your team really needs to do in the upcoming season. Because if you just need that stabilizing presence at quarterback who's not really going to light the world on fire, but he's not going to kill you, there's a lot of teams out there that could really use that. I think the one I'm really paying attention to is Aiden Childs out of Michigan State.
Yes.
5-star quarterback. So again, like, I almost throw star ratings out because there's a ton of stories of 5 stars that didn't work out. And then you have 2 and 3 star guys that blossom into tremendous players at the college level, future Hall of Famers in the NFL. So it's a tough conversation, but you can't deny his physical gifts. And you also have to be honest about what he had to work with at Michigan State. Was it all everybody else's fault? No, but you went from Mel Tucker to Jonathan Smith to next to no offensive line, nearly no one to throw the football to. And he made a lot of mistakes. He was extremely turnover prone, but you can't ignore what he has from a physical standpoint. So where he winds up exactly, I don't know, but I think Childs is an interesting project. And that's a tough thing to say about a guy who's already burned a lot of his eligibility. Taking a guy on like that, you can't really afford to sit him and work with him. It's got to be the right situation for Childs to develop and figure things out. He's got to have the right protection. He's got to have the guys to work with. So I hope Childs figures it out because I think he is an exciting talent.
The boom or bust potential with him is through the roof. I mean, you look at some of his throws that he made this year, your jaw just hits the floor. It's beyond impressive to see how well he was able to build a rapport in this offense. Son, I'll go a step further, Tom. Michigan State had nobody to throw to outside of Nick Marsh. It truly was. If you go back and watch the film, countless drives and repetitions and throws to where it felt like, hey, the dude's doing everything possible, but he's throwing into double coverage because a wide receiver is falling up short. He's throwing downfield because if he thought that a wide receiver was supposed to cut left and instead he cut right, and that leads to a turnover. So you are getting a lot of the boom and bust factor for somebody who's got 3 years of playing experience from his time at Oregon State with Jonathan Smith to then going to Michigan State and earning the starting job to being benched because there was just so much inconsistencies. So he's got to go to a man-ready system. There's a couple teams I would be really interested in. The first one, though, I think is in the ACC. I'm going to be intrigued to see what happens with Darian Mensah, his status long-term. Duke quietly underneath Manny Diaz has done a good job of being able to go out, land portal players at the quarterback spot, and maybe they cater toward their strengths, things that they know that are dire toward their success. And lo and behold, you won an ACC title with Darian Mensah. And last season, you also were able to win 9 games in your first year with Malik Murphy, who ended up going to Oregon State. And sometimes the grass isn't always greener, as proven by how bad it was in Corvallis this year.
It sounds like a fun project for Florida State to bring on. Who's going to have to go to the portal again? I don't really think that's a realistic possibility, but
Well,
see
and
what they do.
TJ, like the interesting thing, Florida State, I know you've posted about it a lot on social media. It's unfortunately been a lot of guys hopping in the transfer portal. The challenge in this cycle is because there is so much quarterback talent. You have to ask yourself, what am I spending this money on? If you're going to spend $3.5 million, for instance, on Mestamaker as a guy who's got a lot of attention out of North Texas, led FBS in passing yards last year for the Green. Like, what are you spending that for? Is that the spend for your quarterback room that gets you over the hump? Because that's a huge chunk of money. If you're looking at a quarterback that's anywhere between like $3 and $4 million, you're probably at the upper echelon of FBS. And let's be honest with ourselves, as much as Florida State is a blue blood program, why would you spend $3 to $4 million on a quarterback if it's a 1-year rental and it's going to get you to what, 6-6, 7-5, maybe 8-4 this upcoming season, and then Mike Norvell gets to stay and everybody in Tallahassee is really happy? Like, you have to be reasonable, like an NFL general manager, and look at an upcoming season and say, hey, are we going to get it done overall? And then why am I making this spend? Don't just go and like Duke getting Mensa, I thought was wild to begin with, because I'm like, you're spending, what was it, $3 million reportedly on Mensa? And I'm like, it's Duke. Like, yeah, you won the ACC championship. You didn't make the playoff. You lost 5 games. We knew that supporting cast wasn't going to be very good. So why offer up that amount of money for an investment that you're not going to really see a return on? If your ROI is we won the ACC championship and we go to a bowl game, like, cool. But I just don't understand that spend.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I think Florida State's, they're in so much trouble in so many ways. It's not even funny. Right. I think at this point, your best option from like a roster GM cap situation is probably to just run it back with Tommy if he gets his waiver, because if you can upgrade, I don't want to paint the awful picture that was Florida State football in any better light than it was. They lost a 1-score game to Pitt. They lost a 1-score game to Virginia in double overtime. They lost a 1-score game to Stanford. I don't really think they were in it, but they lost a close game to Miami. They lost a 1-score game to NC State. Well, I guess they did score in garbage time after the fumble. So, but they were in a competitive game with NC State. If you can upgrade a couple of things on the defense, then yeah, you probably are looking at a few more wins that way. And so I agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go spend a ton of money on the quarterback position, because again, what's it netting you? Eight wins kind of max. This is an average team. On Miami specifically, we talked a little bit about, who they may target, who they may go after, what quarterbacks make sense. Can they continue to, they don't recruit the quarterback position extremely well.
Right.
Can they continue to just, there's a lot of talent outside of QB down in Coral Gables, but man, it feels somewhat risky to just kind of continue to go quarterback over and over and over again in the portal. Can they continue to hit at the rate at which they have?
I would push back and say there's not a reason to doubt that they can, because we've seen it with 2 quarterbacks that really need to hit reset, and both were able to accomplish at least something for their future. One went on to become the number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward, and the other one, well, Carson Beck took his team to the college football playoff, and he was able to get signature wins, and he played out the stretch of the season very promising. You look at his numbers, a 10-1 touchdown interception ratio, completion percentage over 76%. He's going to be a draft eligible quarterback now that a lot of people are kind of looking past his faults when he was at Georgia. So there's a lot to look at and believe that they can continue to hit because of who they have as their offensive coordinator and quarterback developer with Shannon Dawson. The question is, what are you looking for to build around the current regime that's already in place? You have a stable offensive line. You absolutely have to love the fact that you are getting a lot more stability when it comes to that wide receiver 1 position in Malachi Toney. You're always going to be a hotbed destination, I think, in terms of what you have for the standpoint of being able to land transfer portal talent. You have an NIL package in play. So my only question turns to, at this point, what is the skill set you are looking for as a player that currently is going to elevate the offensive personnel that's built around what you already have in the building? Because that may be a DJ Lagway, but then DJ Lagway may not be a good fit for what Shannon Dawson wants with the personnel that's returning next year, and that's where you got to pivot over to a Dylan Raiola. I think the other thing is that you got to be willing to understand these quarterbacks have to hit reset. They can't be sitting here with the intention or the inclination that what I did at my last school is a reason why I'm starting. That wasn't the case for anybody in that building. They brought in these guys because they knew that they were upgrades, but they had to also prove throughout all of training camp, throughout all of the workouts, throughout all of spring, that they were willing to be able to fix the faults and then earn their way onto the field, which is easier said than done for a guy like Dylan Raiola. It's a lot easier said than done for a guy like DJ Lagway, who honestly, for as much faults as he was in with bad offensive coordination, he had some really terrible throws that ultimately cost his team games. That's not execution based off of the play design. That's execution based off of you.
Where do you think his best fit is?
DJ?
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest, and it feels malpractice to say it this way, but the skills that he has, and now knowing that one of them just left in the portal, I very much would like to see him be paired with Tennessee. Because if I do think that in a Josh Heupel-led offense that is going to ask you to go vertical downfield, that is going to ask you to use your mobility, have an emphasis on trusting the rushing attack, that's a skill set to where I think he would flourish. I think that he would be arguably one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC because it's a more scheme fit that I think better suits his strengths. The problem is that, are you trying to go to be an NFL draft prospect? Because if you are, that's not an offense that's going to cater to a lot of people. In fact, that's one that's actually going to hinder your success.
Some other names on this list. We'll do a few more and then we'll get out. Well, not out, but just on to something else.
Aaron Philo was one I was texting you guys about. Georgia Tech quarterback potentially being linked to Tennessee. I haven't seen enough of Philo to really get all that interested or excited about it. And
I think linked to Florida.
Oh, linked to Florida. Excuse me. You're right. Linked to Florida. Yeah. I mean, it feels like Florida hasn't figured out the transfer portal quarterback situation. Forgive me. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy from Wisconsin a few years ago. Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz was another interesting story because he had hell of a star rating coming out of high school and felt like a nice, steady veteran quarterback. And he kind of was, but then Lagway started to explode and everybody wanted him to start. I don't know enough about Philo to really say if that excites me for Florida.
Well, what it does is it gives you an opportunity to have a quarterback in play that already understands Buster Faulkner's offense while you find your guy long-term. Now, I can tell you that I've spoken to some people. There is a name that currently is looking to potentially enter the NFL draft that is at his school. If he doesn't enter the NFL draft, he may end up going in the portal. And John Summerall has a good relationship with him from his days at Tulane. So just go ahead and take that with a grain of salt. There's an opportunity to where if things go according to plan, and he feels comfortable in Buster Faulkner's offense, you may be seeing an ACC kid head down to the SEC for 2026.
Where else? Let's do one more and then let's move on to some college football playoff talk.
Right now, J.C. Brown, the wide receiver from Kansas State, I think is going to be a home run fit for certain teams. He can play in the slot. He's got good catch radius. He's able to make plays in the open field. He's got some special team skill sets. This to me feels like a team that right now probably is looking to build around their current starting quarterback. And I got two. I think Oklahoma absolutely needs to go after him to try and get the dink and dunk plays off of John Mateer. And then I think that South Carolina needs an experienced veteran to pair alongside with what you got returning and a bunch of young players that are up and coming. It would make a lot of sense for you to go get somebody for the North Sellers to have as a security blanket.
For Oklahoma, I'm glad you mentioned them. Do we assume Mateer is out, right? He's a junior.
No, he's coming back. I would be, at this point, beyond flabbergasted to see a guy who has almost as many touchdowns as interceptions go enter the draft.
Yeah. The reason I ask, because I like Mestamaker, and he reminds me a little bit of Sam Bradford. Hell, he's wearing the same number. Put him in at Oklahoma, and I'm like, that feels authentic to what Oklahoma has wanted out of the quarterback position pre-Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley changed what the quarterback position looked like for the Sooners, and granted the game has as well. But the mobile dual threat quarterback has been there for a while. Oklahoma was built on pocket passers, and I think Mestamaker gives you a little bit of both worlds in that he can move a little bit, but he's a hell of a passer. I think that would be very exciting at Oklahoma. I've seen some rumbling the Mateer is maybe weighing the NFL draft. I think that would be a mistake. He needs to come back, but you have to be really, really disappointed with what he put on tape this year for Oklahoma, considering what you paid.
I'll tell you another one, Kenny Minchie. He's got
Hmm.
multiple years of experience sitting in an offense led by Mike Denbrock. How is that going to translate when there's no film on him? I mean, you're really going banking off of just the overall reps that you see in practice. And remind yourself, boys, CJ Carr had to beat him out for the starting job. It went down to the wire. There was people who said that Kenny Minchie actually looked like the better quarterback at times. So does that mean because of you're just a big time name, you have ties to the state of Tennessee? Do maybe you go to a Tennessee or a Vanderbilt? Do maybe you go to a G5 program like a Memphis, hit reset entirely, go cash in on your value for next season? He's a really big outlier because of if he hits, he's going to be a superstar. If he doesn't hit, we're going to have some question marks long term about his status.
Let's look at some of the coaches in the college football playoff. Who needs to win some games here? Who could be significantly helped if they win some games in this thing? As the playoff committee should have done in general. I'll exclude JMU and Tulane from this conversation, but of the other 10, thoughts around coaches in the college football playoff.
First is Curt Cignetti. As much as Indiana has arrived and they have a Heisman Trophy winner and they are the number one team in the country, they're undefeated. You just won the Big Ten championship. You beat Ohio State. Everything looks great. Last year, in his first year, 11-1, and then you get thumped in the first round of the playoffs. You got thumped in the regular season by Ohio State. Now, that victory against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, it proved a lot about what Indiana is capable of. You get a first-round bye, and then you'll play either Alabama or Oklahoma. I'd say the toughest draw of any team in the first round. You can argue the Miami, Texas A&M side of things. But still, I really think if Indiana lays an egg against either Alabama or Oklahoma, you're going to see people say, yeah, Indiana's still not for real. And Cignetti, I think, has the ability to win that game. I think Indiana has the ability to beat either Alabama or Oklahoma. I've been on the record. I think Alabama beats the Sooners and then beats Indiana in the second round. I think that's more of a battle-tested team and program, and they can get past Indiana. But Indiana could win both those games very easily. Curt Cignetti has to prove that Indiana can be more than just a regular season juggernaut. If the goal is to win the national championship, you might not do it this year, but you've got to at least get out of the semifinal or the quarterfinal, whatever it is. They have to win a game, and they have to do it not exactly with a ton of style points, but they have to win.
I'll stay in the same bracket and go with Alabama. And the main reason why is not because of they deserve or they have to prove that Kalen DeBoer can be a winner in the postseason. It's his first playoff appearance at Alabama. That's just a common fact. But the thing is that there will be people who said this is why we can't allow Alabama into the playoff if they crap the bed against a team in Norman, if they end up not holding up their end of the bargain offensively. Because let's just call it as is. It was a bad offensive executed game against the Georgia Bulldogs. And this is why people are losing their minds saying that Notre Dame playing like one of the 6 best teams in college football to close out the year. Damn the head-to-head. Damn the fact that Alabama was the number 1 seed. They have got to be able to prove that they belong in the postseason. If you lay an egg or you end up looking anemic offensively and Ty Simpson takes massive step backs and you're not able to find any bit of a rapport, then by all means, people are going to look at you and say, okay, well, why are we allowing teams to go into the college football playoff when they don't have a house of merit in their biggest game of the year, which is a conference title appearance? I'm personally against punishing college football playoff teams that play in their conference title appearance. But at the same time, BYU is a perfect case that says, hey, we didn't have to play in this game either. We would have finished 11-1, and you would have had to then say at 11-1, we're left in the college football playoffs. So to kind of end the narrative about where the SEC championship and the Big 12 championship are nowhere near in the same stratosphere, this is one that you're going to have to see Kalen DeBoer fix a lot of faults for an offense that is not fully healthy, a defense that's going to be without one of its better pass rushers in LT Overton, and going up against R. Mason Thomas, who wasn't in that game against Alabama the first time around, and go on in and be able to secure a win. If they do that, a lot of people will say, okay, Alabama had the best regular season win in college football this year against Georgia. They were able to go ahead and make up for the mistakes with the turnovers against Oklahoma. And now they're playing against the number 1 team. And some may actually believe, like Tom is, they're actually better than Indiana. So winning that game, now you're in the semifinals. we have to remind ourselves to reward teams that are playing in the conference championship weekend instead of penalizing them.
I think it even goes back to last year, Cole, somewhat too. You mentioned BYU and Alabama. If you also had SMU last year come out and completely lay an egg in their first round matchup. And so it would be, now this is two teams that have made it, one that, BYU didn't. It would start to create a narrative around maybe these conference champion runners up are not what we want to put in. Maybe this is not the direction we want to go. And it just is another data point that, again, de-emphasizes the regular season. I think there's other coaches that could, I don't know that they necessarily must win, but need to. I think Mario Cristobal and actually both of the coaches in that matchup, Mario Cristobal and Mike Elko, if we get to this A&M game and they lose this at home to Miami, who, let's call it spade a spade. The ACC is just not looked at like the SEC is. The last month for A&M, though it didn't finish 8-4, like a lot of people thought, like, oh, they could fall off. It would include the really bad performance for at least a half or most of 3 quarters against South Carolina, the Texas game, not making the SEC championship, though you kind of led the whole way and had a great chance to do that. And then a loss to an ACC team in the first round. And I think people would say, okay, well, yeah, nice start just like last year, but what did you do with it? You flopped down the stretch. I think they could legitimize their season by winning. And then the same thing with Miami. So there's a whole Miami Notre Dame debate that happened. Or should Miami have really made it in? Couldn't make their conference championship. Started out hot, and we thought they were one of the better teams in the country. And then they beat up on a bunch of bad teams down the stretch. The Pitt game was nice. But then they go and play an A&M team that didn't look their best at the end of the season and lose. So I think for both those coaches, it would very much legitimize their seasons, kind of where they are as a program. Like winning a college football playoff game against either of those two teams, it would be a big deal. I think you could probably say the same for Dan Lanning if they are able to go in, and I think their path is pretty favorable. If they're able to go beat Texas Tech, I think that's a big deal. However, if they go lose to Texas Tech, I don't think they'll get a lot of credit for anything that happens against JMU this weekend. But if they go beat Texas Tech and make the semifinal and then have a really good shot at either a rematch or an imperfect Bama or Oklahoma, though I don't really see Oklahoma getting that far, I think that could be huge for Dan Lanning. So not a ton to lose for those coaches, but just an insane amount to gain.
I agree with Dan Lanning. I think this is a disappointment for Oregon if they don't at least make the semifinal. I think they should be able to beat both JMU and Texas Tech. And hell, I've said it before, I see them in the national championship game because I think they could beat any of Alabama, Oklahoma, or Indiana. I think that much of what Oregon is able to round out into form. Granted, they're getting healthy, but they have time on their side with an inferior opponent in JMU this weekend. They don't need to play all their dudes. Texas Tech, you're going to need to bring your best, but you should be able to beat that team. Looking elsewhere, Pete Golding at Ole Miss, there's just plenty to gain. If you...
Yeah, nothing to lose.
That's the thing, is that's all about gaining.
Right. If you blow it against Tulane, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But up against Kirby Smart and Georgia in the second round, no one is going to be looking at Pete Golding and Ole Miss expecting them to win that game. So the expectations are low, and people understand the whole turnover with Lane Kiffin. I push back, TJ, on what you said about Mario Cristobal and Mike Elko, and that Elko and Cristobal finally got their teams into the playoff. So yes, while it would be disappointing based on what A&M especially did in the regular season, I don't think it's necessarily going to put him on the hot seat. I agree. Cristobal, I think, would be more on the hot seat because it's just been so wonky for so many years, and it's not a situation where they would fire him after making it to the college football playoff unless they fall off a cliff next year. But to the conversation we were having before about quarterbacks and the talent they've accrued, you've been given all of these gifts and your game management still is really bad. And elements of your recruiting have improved, certainly, but there's certain positions where you just don't bother to do it. And you're getting into the playoff now. You're not hacking it within your conference. I don't think Cristobal would get fired in 2026. Granted, I thought that about James Franklin, so crazier things could happen. But I don't think this is a situation where if this is competitive, Cristobal or Elko are on the hot seat. In the end, you got your team into the playoff, and now you got to see how the chips fall.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's a hot seat type conversation. I think it's more of they have much more to gain than lose But I do think people would look at it, and it would kind of like we said with Alabama losing for the bigger picture conversation. I think it would be, see, we should have put Notre Dame in, or A&M kind of flopped down the stretch. Though they were able to pull out the South Carolina win, it was, what did we do this last month, or couldn't win the big game or whatever. But I do agree. It's not a hot seat situation. It's just there's a lot more to gain for both those coaches.
Absolutely.
It kind of legitimize. I think a win for either of the A&M or Miami program would just legitimize their season. And then from there, I think the rest would be gravy, especially with Ohio State the next round.
Well, I think that when you talk about Ole Miss for a standpoint, yeah, you don't need to beat Georgia. I think that you've earned enough respect from the public eye, but you at least were competitive against Georgia in the 2 times that Lane Kiffin has gone up against Kirby Smart. They won in regulation at home 2 years ago, and they beat up on Carson Beck. And then this past season, they made it a game up until the fourth quarter, and then Trinidad Chambliss had his Jackson Dart versus Florida moment where the offense finally stalled and the other team didn't stall, and they were able to win with methodical drives. So for Ole Miss, I think the standpoint is, hey, we may have lost the coach, but we still have the identity of this Rebels roster that got us to 11-1. And if they don't emulate that exact same feeling to go play down to the wire with Georgia, a lot of people will start pinpointing and saying, this is what we can expect from a Pete Golding-led team when they face off against quality rosters in the SEC. They're going to shut themselves down. They're not going to be competitive. They're going to go 8-4, and Lane really was the deciding factor for a lot of these games that felt like you probably shouldn't have been in it, but the play designs and the offensive personnel and the way to catch coaches slipping, that's what you can expect down in Baton Rouge, but it's just a thing of the past at Oxford. I'll go a step further and name a player that needs to have a big-time game. I think Carson Beck has got to be able to show on up that he is worthy of still being in this conversation of a legit quarterback prospect. Keep in mind, he closed out the season on a really high note. He had 1 interception. He had 10 touchdowns. He had a completion percentage around 76%. He had over 1,300 passing yards over his final 4 games. He was in his bag to close out the year and leave no doubt against Pitt and Virginia Tech. But it's Pitt and Virginia Tech. Those are 2 defenses that ranked middle of the pack in the ACC and bottom half when it comes to the overall world of college football. This is Texas A&M. They got a good pass rush. They have good secondary players. They got a good linebacking core. If you're thrown into double coverage and you're looking like how you did like a deer in headlights like against Louisville, this is going to be a game to where you're saying, we brought you in here to be the reason why we could elevate our status at the quarterback spot. We have a good wide receiver core. We have a good offensive line. We can run the football. This falls on your shoulders, and ultimately, there have been multiple moments throughout his tenure, whether that be at Georgia, whether that be at Miami, when the pressure is on, he's crumbled underneath the spotlight. So an opportunity for him to go into Kyle Field, over 107 screaming Ags that are going to be up and at it starting at 6 a.m., 2 sheets to the wind before a 76 degree at 11 a.m. kickoff. Like, you are able to shut them down. You got to feel pretty good about where you are.
Let's keep it on the college football playoff a little bit, and let's just go through each team, buy or sell their chances to win a championship. Pretender, contender, buy or sell, smash or pass, whatever you guys want to call it. It can be any or all of the above. I think we all may land on the same thing here, but listen, I'll exclude again. We'll just go with our top 10. Start with Miami as the 10 seed. I'm surprisingly okay. Win it all, I don't know. Maybe their chances to win multiple games is a better. I'm buying Miami here. If they go into Kyle Field and win, which I do project, that's my prediction. We did them on Monday. I'm buying them. I think they can get hot. Ohio State showing vulnerability is a big deal. Now, do I really have them knocking off 2 SEC teams and Ohio State? That'd be tough. But I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibilities. I think Miami has a better chance to win this than maybe Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas Tech. I'd put them, their path is tougher, but for some reason, maybe it's the last month. I thought that Miami did play a lot better, and I'm kind of buying their chances in this thing.
They did play better. I completely disagree. I sell Miami. I don't think they're even getting out of the first round in this thing. I buy Alabama having the potential path to make it to the national championship far earlier than I would buy any sort of stock in Miami. To your point, you would have to beat Texas A&M, Ohio State, and likely Georgia to make the national championship game. That doesn't even mean win it. So, yeah, I don't think they would get past an Ohio State, even if they did beat Texas A&M. I have no doubt in my mind Georgia would thump Miami. I really hate that matchup for the Hurricanes. But the other side of the bracket, where you've got Indiana and Texas Tech waiting for you in the second round, that's the easy side of the bracket in the grand scheme of things. And I really like, as I've said a couple of times now, I buy Oregon to make the national championship game. I think the path is there. I immediately, not immediately, but I sell Texas A&M because, again, I don't think they get past both Ohio State and Georgia in the latter rounds. I think that is murderer's row.
On the Miami thing, just very quickly, again, they very well may go and lose on Saturday morning. But could you imagine the storylines if we got the Miami Ohio State rematch from 2002 and then the Miami UG, like the Beck UGA? Like, I'm certainly not cheering for this to happen because of personal biases and stuff. Both of those would be incredibly fun to talk about and cover. If
give me Gunner
they
versus
got, and some of my buying Miami is just knowing how good they are in the trenches and knowing how much talent is on that team. So I'm not really cheering for that. Maybe it sounds like I am, but the Beck rematch and the Miami Ohio State rematch would both be phenomenal. So, Cole.
I'll tell you the thing that I'm buying a lot into is that having a tune-up game is going to be able to really set the tone for the rest of your season. I buy Oregon. I do. I think that even though they're not fully healthy right now, I like the fact that they're going to have an opportunity to be able to kind of work out all the kinks, all of the faults, all the issues that maybe were kind of hindering them toward down the stretch. And they won't have to rush back a guy like a Evan Stewart or like a Gary Bryant or like a DeCorian Moore. If they're good to go, they're good to go. But now you get to figure out what are some things about your offense that are going to be pinpoint dominant moments to where you have to be able to kind of show one up against Texas Tech. And I think that it's a really good way for you to be able to build a rapport defensively against a underwhelming team like JMU to then be able to use that as an advantage to take on a team with Baron Morton at starting quarterback who, when he's on point, he's on point. But when he's erratic, I mean, you're getting turnovers all the time. You're watching a team that's going to be playing where they don't have a number one receiver breaking on open. And this is a really good secondary. So I'm very much buying into Oregon. I think that they're on a run to the national championship. And then it's really hard to say that the SEC right now has a legit favorite. But I will say if there was a favorite to come on out from that bracket, I love Georgia. I think Georgia's playing not only with confidence, but this is a team that saw what its fault was at the midway point of the year. And they went into that Ole Miss game and they allowed over, I think it was 400 yards of offense. And they really struggled in the first half. And Kirby lost his mind and basically said, we are doing everything possible to pitch a shutout in the second half. And they didn't, but they did pitch a shutout in the fourth quarter. Well, guys, the defense isn't elite when it comes to winning the pass rush, but they're great when it comes to closing the gap and putting pressure on quarterbacks into making mistakes. Their secondary has been elite over the last 5 games of the season, and they're holding teams to midfield on multiple drives. So you get that plus the offense with the headline weapon in Zachariah Branch that honestly is probably the second most dangerous player with the ball in his hands outside of Malachi Toney, a solid run game and an offensive game plan that can work, whether it be trusting you to run the football 19, 20 times in a row and tire down a defense, or Gunnar Stockton building a rapport with guys like Dylan Bell, Oscar Delp, Lucky Lawson. You can get the ball out of the backfield to Nate Frazier. This feels like a Georgia team that is playing its best version of football, and they are on a one-way track to make it to the national championship.
Would you guys sell the other 3 SEC teams besides Georgia and Alabama?
No.
I think I am. I hate to be that guy, but like I don't see Ole Miss winning. I don't see. I know we got an Oklahoma commenter not trying to, but I'm not buying them because the offense. Are there paths like their defense goes off? Craver and Concepcion on the other side go off every single. Yes, there are paths, but I think I'm selling all 3 SEC teams that are not Georgia and Alabama, and I'm kind of selling Alabama too. Once they get to the next round, but their path I think is a little bit better.
I'm not selling Texas A&M entirely because I've seen them play at a peak level against really quality defenses. And that's not to say that they can't beat Ohio State. I don't know if they will beat Ohio State. Ohio State would have to have a lot of turnovers. This would have to be a major test for Julian Saying, kind of where it's bad mistakes. And quite literally, the margin of error is probably razor thin because of look at what happened in the game against Indiana. 4th down stop that probably should have been converted. That wasn't because his knee was down. Missed field goal, interception. That was it. That was the only thing that really stopped Ohio State from losing against Indiana. But you look at the explosive players of what you have offensively for Texas A&M. You look at their defensive line and what they have in terms of depth and what you got in the secondary and how they've been playing better as of late. And they're able to win in man coverage with Tyreek Chappelle and you throw in Des Ricks, you throw Dalton Brooks over the top. I think that this would be the best game of round 2. So if Texas A&M were to be able to get the win over Ohio State, them or Georgia would be in the national championship, which would be a first for the SEC since 2022, which again, massive win. Not even if you are to win the whole damn thing.
I love the quarterfinal, neutral site games, and I hate them, but like the advantage for Georgia playing in the Sugar Bowl, like you might as well just play it in Athens. Then you have the Cotton Bowl for Ohio State, so Texas A&M could have a decent advantage there, but Ohio State fans absolutely travel, so that will be pretty much a split. The Rose Bowl for Indiana versus either Alabama or Oklahoma, that's just a wonderful, wonderful display, and I still feel like the Rose Bowl should be the national championship game on New Year's Day. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. And then the Capital One Orange Bowl in Miami, Texas Tech versus either Oregon or James Madison. We pretty much know where that's going to go. Nothing really special about that one, but man, Georgia is just going to invite someone into a buzzsaw in Atlanta there for the Sugar Bowl.
Let me ask you guys, if there's one team that you are 100% selling and it's not Tulane and it's not a JMU, who is it?
For me, it's Miami.
You're fully selling Miami.
Yeah, I'm selling Miami. Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't think they would get past Texas A&M. It's a toss-up for me between them and Oklahoma, and I know somebody's losing their mind in the comment section right now about how much we're talking trash about Oklahoma, but Oklahoma's offense sucks. It is really bad. There's weapons, certainly, for John Mateer if he can pull his head out of his backside. It's a championship-level defense for Oklahoma, but that offense just drags it down, unfortunately. So for me,
I think it's Ole Miss, and it has more to do with the path. Like, I hate to be I'd love to see them go on a run with Golding. Like, that'd be fun. But, man, first of all, I mean, Tom just mentioned it, the buzzsaw they're going to run into. Like, I think that's a big deal. And then, let's say they get through Georgia. Then they're playing Ohio State. I don't. Now, maybe if they beat Georgia, my mind changes. And that's the same thing. Like, if Oklahoma goes out and beats Alabama by 20 and their offense looks great, yeah, well, you change your mind on all this stuff. If Miami goes into Kyle Field and wins by 20 and Carson Beck just looks like a Heisman type candidate, then yeah, Tom will change. So there's a lot that can change our minds, I guess, on all of these teams. But when I look at Ole Miss's path, man, I think they're going to beat Tulane. I think they're going to beat them going away. Mm-hmm. But if this is a 7-point game in the fourth quarter, like, nobody's going to be like, oh my God, how did it happen? Like if Retzloff goes off or something. So I'm not trying to paint a picture that Tulane could go in there and upset them by any means. But to me, Ole Miss would be the team I think I would sell the most. I think they've got the most difficult path. They're the ones that have the biggest coaching change, kind of impacting things. They're the ones that I would sell the hardest in this playoff.
Or forgive me, the Sugar Bowl's in New Orleans. But yeah, forgive me. Anyway, so that's tremendous thing that ESPN could possibly do for that game is to have Lane Kiffin on the game day crew, on the countdown crew, on the field.
Don't do that.
Do it.
I'm like, you're telling me, like, just take your football fan element out of it. From
a drama standpoint, which basically college football is reality television. So yeah,
if I'm ESPN, I'm saying, Lane, it's going to be your old team up against the buzzsaw of Georgia in your new backyard. If there's ever a TV shot that I would want as a television producer and director, it's Lane Kiffin standing on the sideline in a suit with an ESPN microphone in his hand, watching Georgia dismantle Ole Miss.
Can we do a Manning cast of Coach O, Lane Kiffin, and Hugh Freeze?
Woo!
Of that trio for that game.
I'd rather Spurrier down there for some reason.
That'd be fun.
Okay, I'm going to defend Oklahoma for 5 seconds. And I won't spend a lot of time. I understand that they're pretenders when it comes to the offense, but when you have elite defensive play Guys, it carries you in the playoffs. It does. The Legion of Boom carried Seattle's offense. The 2001 Ravens carried Trent Dill for his old ass. You talk about what we saw back in the 1985 Bears. Who talks about Jim McMahon? Nobody. You know what they talk about? The penetrable force of what you had with the guys in the trenches. So if you're telling me I get a fully healthy R. Mason Thomas and he can force a turnover, multiple turnovers, which they do on the regular for a team against Alabama, and then they force Fernando Mendoza, who, I'll just be completely real, he's gone up against one defense that's even close to being comparable to a team like Oklahoma. If they're able to make that a 4-quarter game, I see a pathway to where they can make it to the semifinals. I don't think that they can beat Oregon. I don't think that they can beat Texas Tech. But to say that they are the biggest pretenders, all you need is 3 or 4 deep shots down the field from John Mateer, avoid losing the turnover battle, and force 2 or 3 big-time plays in the fourth quarter, and you got to win. It's ugly. It's not pretty. It's like it's a boa constrictor. You're quite literally suffocating and playing with your food, but ultimately you're feasting that night if your defense prevails.
Oh, hold up, Cole. Let me stop you. All of those teams you just mentioned, what did they have on offense?
Quarterback play?
No, the ability to run the ball really well.
Oh, Alabama can't run the ball to save their freaking life.
Oklahoma can't either.
I know, but I'm just saying, get past Alabama. That's automatically 1-0 in the playoff.
If Oklahoma had a killer offensive line and even a passable tailback, like it doesn't really matter often who's carrying the ball. They just have to be competent. If they had that, I would be buying Oklahoma, but they don't have that. That offensive line has been rough.
I won't push back and say that's why I don't think that they can make it to the national championship. But I do think that they could at least win a playoff game and bring it down to the wire in the Rose Bowl against Indiana. Because I'll tell you, defense traveling out west, that may end up being a reason why we're talking about the Sooners with Brent Venables of all people finding a way to lose random games to teams like Navy, but being able to beat Alabama and Kirk Cignetti, who's right now probably the hottest coach in college football.
It would be the comeback coach of the year story. So hopefully that makes at the Smoke 420 Tires BBQ Guns feel better about the Sooners. Tell me you're an Oklahoma fan without telling me you're an Oklahoma fan.
That's a hell of a name. All right, let's give Sleeper some love. Let's go straight into it. Dante Moore, 234.5 passing yards, more or less?
Less, because I'm not sure that they're going to have all their receivers back for this game. So it's going to be a lot of Kenyon Sadiq and a lot of Malik Benson.
I'm going to say less because they have been run heavy with a lot of the injuries they've had over the last few weeks. I just don't think they're going to ask Dante Moore to do that much in the passing game. I think they're going to hand the ball off a lot.
I do too. Make it a 3 for 3 less. Isaiah Tatanga, Oklahoma wide receiver, 67.5 receiving yards against that Alabama secondary.
More, because of guess what? He'll have one catch for 76 yards, and that'll be the only play he makes all day.
More. You got to have it. He has to have a big game if Oklahoma's going to win it.
John Mateer, 1.5 passing touchdowns.
1.5 passing touchdowns?
Yeah.
Yes.
If we're overall, I'd be like more. I could see him doing some stuff with his legs. I could see him getting it done there, but I'll say less on passing touchdowns.
Less. I just do not believe that you're going to find your way into the end zone twice, at least through the year, with a top 10 secondary coming on in from Alabama that's going to be fully rested.
Yeah.
I'll go less as well. Ryan Williams, 46.5 receiving yards.
More, I guess, because he could do that on one catch and then fall asleep the rest of the game. It's tough.
You know what? I go
for 20 or 80. So this is a really tough line.
Right.
I go more because I think that he will be not a part of the Alabama offense next season. So he's got to do everything possible to guarantee that his money and NIL check is going to cash on him for a team like Texas in 2026.
Carson Beck, 235.5 passing. I almost said receiving. Passing yards.
Honestly, more. I feel like that this is going to be a game where they force feed Malachi Toney as much as possible, and then they finally double team him, and you start getting CJ Daniels involved.
I'm going to go more as well. I think they pass the ball quite a bit. I like their chances throwing the ball more than I like it Fletcher running against that front. So I'll go more whether they win or lose. I think they throw the ball quite a bit.
I'll say more as well. I think they're going to be playing catch up a good amount in this game.
Marcel Reed, 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I'll go more. I think that you're going to see both Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver find their way into the end zone at least once.
Yeah, agreed. I like them more as well. The weakest point of this Miami team is their secondary. I think they find their way in a couple of times.
Which in fact, it's not that weak.
It's not terrible. It's not last year's at all, but I do like their It is the worst part. But again, I'm not calling it bad. It's just not as good as the rest of the team, in my opinion.
I agree more.
Wayne Knight, JMU. Listen, we'll give some Group of 5 love. Wayne Knight, 65.5 rushing yards. If this was anybody with Oregon, I might go more. I'll go less just because I think that defense is pretty stout. I think it's going to be a long day for JMU.
I will say less. I would love to know what the line is for, forgive me, whoever the starting quarterback is for JMU, because I think he's going to have to throw it a bunch.
Alonta Burnett.
Thank you.
Bennett. Less, and here's the reason why. JMU faced off against one team ranked inside the top 40 of FPI standings. That was Louisville, where they lost by 14. He totaled on 5 carries, 12 yards. So I am not sold that he is going to be able to get the ball rolling.
Jake Retzlaff, 183.5 passing yards in the Grove.
I'll say more. Old Miss, that defense can give up some yards, some points. So it wouldn't shock me if Tulane was able to get a few here and there. So I'll say more. And it'll be maybe some garbage time stuff.
Ole Miss secondary is top 20 in college football. Less, and less. I do not think that you're going to be able to win through the air.
I'll go more strictly because I think they will get stuff late and be chasing points for quite a bit through the day. Last one, Ty Simpson, 235.5 passing yards.
You're going to have to because you can't run the football to save your freaking life. And I think Alabama's winning this game. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and say that it's the more.
Say more as well. Agreed.
I kind of want to go less just to be a contrarian, but I don't think it happens. So I'll agree. We'll all three go more on this one. Appreciate Sleeper. Again, go find these picks and more on the Sleeper app. Use our code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. Appreciate Sleeper for their support this year. Kenny Dillingham going to Michigan, guys? Just wham bam on that one. No transition. Nothing soft about it.
There continues to be rampant speculation about who's going to be the next Michigan head coach. I said it earlier on this week. At what point does a coach of any value or competency decide to walk into this dumpster fire? It's bad. And I understand the point Cole has made that the brand is the brand and it's a big opportunity, but this is a really messed up program right now. I believe it's been put out there that Jetfish is passed already. Kenny Dillingham has been asked about it a number of times and has just kind of been back and forth on the issue and hasn't really given a clear answer. There's been some speculation by certain reporters of Kenny Dillingham getting an offer from Arizona State and them not necessarily meeting in the middle on what Kenny Dillingham wants in the future at Arizona State. I imagine he wants a much larger NIL commitment, and I don't know if Arizona State is capable of providing that. So if Arizona State can't give him what he wants, because he does seem to want to be at Arizona State in all of this, but if he doesn't get what he wants, he will certainly get the resources from Michigan. It's just a massive undertaking. So part of me feels like Kenny Dillingham, the reason he's not answering right now is because he's waiting for the dust to settle. But I do think you see Dillingham stay at Arizona State. I don't know, man. Cole, I don't know how you feel about this. And we've talked about it. Yeah, the brand is the brand, but this story gets worse and worse by the day with Michigan. And the concept of a Michigan man being this stately, near presidential alpha male, I'm like, that image has been shattered.
No, the alpha male still exists, boys. He loves his cigars. He loves wearing cutoff shirts. He loves being outside. He enjoys the fact that he was able to kind of buy his way on up into becoming a coach. And he is all about making sure that it's for good vibes and great times every single moment that you walk on into the big house. We are setting up for Biff Poggi to be named not just the interim coach, but the long guy. Never seen a coach fall his way on up into more jobs possible after becoming a big-time laundryman that was dealing with the business side of things. Now he's coaching in the Big Ten. Here's the thing that I will throw back when it comes to Kenny Dillingham. I think that Kenny Dillingham is very much in love with sticking around at a place like ASU. He everything that he says, I truly believe he means. He is all about fixing the future, fixing the problems, making sure that this team ends up being a night and day difference of what it was for decades before he got there. But at the same time, here's the question that I have for both of you. Jed Fish has said, no, I don't plan on taking another job this offseason. You've heard from Kalen DeBoer. Yeah, no, I'm planning on being the Alabama head coach. Oh, and on top of that, he just made a hire for his offensive staff in 2026. So I didn't think the Michigan coach could actually make hires when, he's not going to be there in 2 weeks. Has Kenny Dillingham officially said no, or has he said, I love my school, I want to be at my school, this is where I want to be, this is exactly where I'm meant to be right now, we're here to build something for the long term, and use the coach speak? Because I can tell you what, I've heard 2 no's. I've yet to hear a surefire, no questions asked, no from Kenny Dillingham.
Fair. I think part of it is playing the game when it comes to getting what he wants from a contractual standpoint, but we'll see.
Tom, who's your coach for Michigan if it's not Dilly?
I said before, I forget when this all came out, I said Biff Poggi, why not promote from within? I think we all kind of laughed at that at first, and now that everything is kind of transpired, like this just gets worse and worse. Is Ward Manuel going to be there? Are you going to gut basically the entire athletics department? Like this could get really ugly. So yeah, sitting tight with a guy who wants to be there is important, and someone who is a veteran and has a good story. I think like they need to have someone with some moral fortitude, I guess, to at least, quell the storm and stop the bleeding. So there aren't a lot of those guys that are willing to take this on and leave their existing program. So I think outside of this one, people hate in terms of moral fortitude, PJ Fleck and row the boat going to Michigan. I don't think Michigan fans would be cool with that, but if you're looking, he's within the conference. He understands the Big Ten. He's done a lot with a little, and he has certainly helped make Minnesota a credible program within the Big Ten. So that's just an idea. I have no information or intel to say that he's actually looking at it or anything like that. He loves Minnesota, from what I understand. But there's an idea.
Does it behoove them to just promote from within, get it all settled, and then just make a big hire next year? Like, is that the smartest play?
Yes, because you have no idea what the future is going to hold. I think there's probably going to be sanctions. It seems like this whole situation with Sharon Moore, more and more information is going to come out where it just gets worse. I wonder if there's criminal allegations that come forward. Obviously, what Sharon Moore did, yes, there is a criminal element to it, but we've heard the rumor about potential former Michigan players threatening the victim, in this case, Shiver. So yeah, this could get really, really bad, and a lot of circumstances where multiple athletics programs within the University of Michigan have been guilty of foul play in some capacity or another. So, and this goes back to 2020, the COVID era, whether it was the football team, other athletics, the basketball program. Like this is a cancer within Michigan. So yes, stabilizing and sitting tight with somebody from within makes most sense. And I'm seeing somebody saying Dave Portnoy wants John Gruden to take the job. Everybody wants John Gruden to be their head coach.
Out of the pay. Okay, can I say the quiet part out loud? And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but is John Gruden even a good coach?
Ooh, interesting.
When was the last time he was good? At a high-end level. 2007. We're talking about almost 20 years ago, he was at an elite level. He went back to Las Vegas. He had underwhelming results. He tried to micromanage everything that went on, and that's why he hired Mike Mayock as his GM. He eventually got caught because of the racial things and because of all the bad comments. He was fired for cause and that reason. But to be completely transparent, is he a good coach? He's a great film study. He's great on television. He's great for the media spotlight. We're at that point of where it's like John Gruden, hey, you want to get back into coaching? No, I enjoy doing this for a living and getting paid millions of dollars not to be stressed all the time. And maybe I should do that too.
And again, why would John Gruden walk into one of the ugliest scenes for a college football program in recent memory?
I mean, I wouldn't, but
he's going to go somewhere. He's going to go to a nice soft landing spot that's perfect for him. Just like Bill Belichick for UNC. They were, oh God, what an acquisition this is. That's what he would go for. Not, oh my God, Michigan, I have to fix everything.
I think at the end of the day, it is going to be Kenny Dillingham. I do just think that they're going to offer him something he can't refuse. And the little things that he's fighting for, there just comes a point of where, and this is the reality, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a Cody Campbell, you can easily go ahead and use this as your advantage. But if you don't have that guy ponying up the money to keep your staff around, because look at what Cody Campbell just did. He made sure that every single one of the coordinators and the GM got a brand new contract and $1 million pay raise. He made sure that they were well equipped for that. You have that out in Ann Arbor. You don't have that right now out in Tempe. If there are going to be things that are non-negotiable for Kenny Dillingham to stick around, that's the first thing that you look at if you are Michigan. Say, we'll offer that regardless of who you are as a person. We'll just give you it because we want you here.
Let's finish up with this. Bowl games. USF plays today, and I know there's, I think he's still there, Golish, but like their coach is gone. The excitement around USF wore off pretty quick this year, and that sucks living here in Tampa. But USF plays. There's a bunch of bowl games. Memphis, NC State, I think, is on Friday as well, coming up in a couple of days. Do you even have? The Pop-Tart Bowl is everybody's favorite answer, just because they've done a good job of marketing, and I think Georgia Tech BYU is an intriguing matchup. Are you even excited for that many bowl games this year? Like, how many matchups are you truly just like jacked about? And the answer is, I'm going to watch all of them, but not that many, and that kind of sucks. But I think Tennessee plays Illinois. I guess that's not terrible.
Yeah.
Penn State Clemson is okay, I guess. Two teams that underperformed. LSU Houston, USC TCU, Iowa versus Vanderbilt, Michigan Texas. Again, Michigan Texas, I guess, isn't awful, but
that's a great game in my opinion.
That's a big storyline game, I think, more than anything. I think it could be competitive. Georgia Tech BYU should be interesting.
Pop-Tart is always the elite game of elite games. Yeah. I mean, that to me is the people's national championship. Because what do we all love together? Good football, great vibes, cannibalization at its finest as we're watching a Pop-Tart be boiled alive.
What's your favorite kind of Pop-Tart?
I am a very, very, very big snob when it comes to Pop-Tarts. Have never always been a fan of them, but you give me a s'mores one, and I can eat that hot cold.
S'mores is my number one too.
This is going to sound terrible. I have very minimal experience with Pop-Tarts, as they were.
Oh, you're the worst.
They were largely forbidden in my household growing up. As
you're like 33. You're allowed to have it in your household now.
Thank you for saying I'm younger than I actually am. I appreciate that. and now to that point, I'm going to go buy a ton of Pop-Tarts today and just kind of go through them. We're just going to figure it. Yeah.
That's going to be Monday's show. It's just Tom eating Pop-Tarts.
Just getting fat on Pop-Tart. Say it again, Cole. I missed it.
You can't answer this. You don't know what flavor of Pop-Tart is.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
S'mores is the best. I do like the classic brown sugar cinnamon. Like, that's fine. It's not exciting to me. That's just kind of like if it's there, I'll eat it. My favorite dessert in the world is cookies and cream, like Oreo stuff. I don't like the cookies and cream Pop-Tart. I think it's a little fake tasting. Sorry to the Pop-Tart folks, but work on your flavors. That said, on bowl season, is there a fix? Is there a way to fix this thing?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, there is. There is, but you're not going to like the answer to it. And this is the problem.
I don't like much today, so it's all good. Lay it on me, Cole.
It's called expanding the playoff and then having these teams be playing in those matchups.
Do you like that more than making them play? Okay, so this gets tossed around quite often. I like the idea of them playing to start the year next year. Like, I understand that some of the players aren't the same, some of the teams aren't the same, but I do like that.
I hate it. Because again, what do you do? Okay, so here'd be my question. Does that game go against you, or does that help you go into this year? Like, your matchup that you're playing, that neutral site game to begin the season, is that going to benefit your record and that's part of your non-conference matchup?
Yes, because scheduling, it should. Yeah, it just counts for next year.
I think a big way that you fix this, and it has nothing to do with when you play the games, or the matchups, or the sponsors, it has everything to do with player contracts. It is everything to do with this weird element we're in right now, like seeing Jaden Mayava is like, I've re-signed with USC, and people being like, it's confusing. It's weird. So get to a point where you're signing these contracts and it says you're locked in for 2, 3, 4 seasons. And if you are medically cleared to play and able, you will play in a bowl game. And that way it's not a ton of opt-outs. We were talking about the Clemson-Penn State game. Clemson is expecting to be without nearly 30 players, whether due to injury or opt-out for this game. Penn State is seeing opt-outs every single day. So it's like, what is the quality of the game ultimately? You can fix this with contracts.
I'd like to get rid of bowl tie-ins. I think bowl tie-ins made a lot of sense at one point, but I would just like almost, and I know Pate kind of alluded to something similar to this last night. I don't really care about like the whole, documentary. I know that he ripped that off somebody else anyway, but just the idea of like, just give me matchups that I care about.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Miami and Notre Dame would have both missed, put Miami and Notre Dame in a bowl game, right? Like just eliminate all the tie-ins and give us matchups that matter. And I think you should almost have to like submit a roster like, hey, here's who we anticipate to play. Because if you're Clemson, and that Clemson versus a lot of people would be a really good matchup. If you're Clemson and you got 30 guys opting out, then your matchup doesn't matter as much, right? Like we're going to dock you a little bit. But if you're Tennessee and everybody's playing, then yeah, you might raise up a couple of rungs. I mean, Tennessee would be kind of high anyway. So I think that would be fun. Get rid of the tie-ins and just give us the best matchups possible. Like if Florida State and, Colorado had both qualified for a bowl, give us Dion versus old team, right? That like, just give us stuff like that to make us care. Give us a USF UF rematch if UF had made it. Like let's see if they can really do it again, right? Just I don't know, incorporate some rivalries, do some former coach type stuff. Like Ole Miss made the playoffs, so it doesn't matter, but like make Ole Miss and LSU play. Like do that. Like give us storylines and reasons to care in bowl season. I don't care about USF versus Old Dominion. I will watch it. I'm going to watch all of them.
Well, how are we supposed to care when Byron Brown and Colton Joseph, their two starting quarterbacks, are not playing in this game?
Well, again, that's where you get docked a little bit. Yeah. And maybe you marry my idea with Tom's a little bit where you guys are forced to kind of play in this thing. But yeah, outside of that, I don't know. It's this weird in between. We've got the playoff. We're thinking about expanding it. We're probably going to expand it. We've got bowls that nobody cares about anymore. It's kind of antiquated based on the new college football that we have. So there needs to be some kind of fix, but I'm going to watch them all, but not with the same passion I used to.
One game I forgot to mention, Iowa versus Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl on New Year's Eve in Tampa, Florida. Diego Pavia's supposed last college football game.
It's going to be his last college football game. He's not playing next year.
He has really damaged his image just by saying F all the voters. Pretty classless the way he's conducted himself. And frankly, he's been a pretty classless guy for a lot of his time in college football. So I'm curious to see what version of Vanderbilt gets trotted out on the field, because Iowa would love to punch Vanderbilt in the mouth, and Kirk Ferentz comes very prepared for bowl games. So if Iowa beats Vandy and sends Diego Pavia limping out of college football, do we then see some videos of Diego Pavia in a nightclub in Tampa saying F the Hawkeyes or just F all this stuff? I mean,
you know what he's going to do? It's going to be worse. He's going to go say F them kids. Because remember, you have the hospital right next door. He's going to do something along those lines. Wave at this bitch. Like that would be the answer for it.
I think that's all the time we have for today. So, on the Pavia news, we will get out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure that you are subscribed here to College Football Addiction so you get the power too. We'll be back on Monday to talk about the playoff games. Sunday night, Monday, sometime. We haven't talked about it yet. And we'll have we won't have previews for the next one yet, but we'll talk about all the games that happened, and then sometime later in the week, we'll preview the next one. So appreciate you guys for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon on the Power 2.